So the salient point here is that there is something that happens when somebody gets close enough to you to see you and love you and accept you, even having seen a part of you that you don't necessarily show the rest of the world on a daily basis. Like once somebody gets close enough to see you more fully, and they actually are offering the connection and the love and the the relationship that you are looking for on some level. Maybe it's not perfect, but there's something sort of coming towards you. This person who loves you is coming towards you. You feel how terrifying that is?
I just remember once a therapist had me look her in the eyes, and that was the most terrifying thing I had to do. I couldn't, like, I could do it, but just barely. It took
Right,
huge effort just to do that. I don't look at people in the eye. I look at their
right,
mouth.
right, yeah.
It's,
Um, so, so that's there were two threads I was picking up on earlier. One was that when people get close to you from a place of love and connection, all the red flags go up,
right.
and there's this whole kind of anxiety panic thing that happens. Um, and then there's this kind of story you go into about how terrible you are, that you're not feeling the right thing, that you're not saying the right thing, that all these things you're sort of judging yourself, and that takes you out of the natural flow of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that that is not an accident. It's subconscious. It's not on purpose from a conscious place, but it serves a useful function, right?
It's sort of sabotage.
Yeah, if you're terrified of being in a open, loving, intimate connection with somebody, and every single time that's offered, you start coming up with reasons for why you're terrible, and then that blows up the relationship. Well, then that tells you exactly what the purpose of that self-judgment is.
How do I separate that from it really isn't the right person, or that was in the last relationship, that was the hardest thing. Like, am I going through all of this when the fact is I just don't like her that much?
Right.
I can't
Um,
I can't untangle it.
it's yeah, it's a tough one. It requires sort of developing your discernment around your intuition and what your truth is beyond whatever mental story might be swirling around. Getting to a place where you can really see your own truth and through the noise of the mind. That just takes practice, and that's what I rely on for relationship is you sort of know when it's alive and active, and you're exploring it because it's sort of just the truth of the moment. Reality is bringing us together, and so we're exploring that. And there then comes a point where the relationship kind of ended, like energetically. You can kind of feel like, okay, we're kind of going through the motions, and we're doing the things that partners do, but there's some aliveness to the relationship that isn't there anymore. There's something that was making it work and making it have life. That's kind of the only way I can put it. And when that's gone, usually both partners can feel it, but they won't necessarily acknowledge it because breaking up is painful. It requires a lot of shifting your life around, and people are lonely. They don't want to lose the person that they're connected to. There's all kinds of reasons why we don't do it, even though our inner truth is saying this is over. It's time to move on. But that's the goal. The process is just every time that you are getting to know somebody, really tune into what is the truth of our connection outside of what it is that I'm thinking about myself. And
Mm-hmm.
the other side of this is actually what I wanted to get to, which is the story of I'm terrible. I love them more. I should have different feelings than I'm having, or I should say different things, or I shouldn't be so anxious and balled up in in anxiety, and all these things that you're telling yourself. that's a narrative that just needs to not be believed anymore.
Mhm.
That is uh, telling you that it's telling you to be afraid, and it's telling you to contract, and it's telling you all the reasons why you and this other person shouldn't be together. And it might be, it's sort of framing it in a way so that it's not being mean to the other person, but the effect is still the same. It's still um, strongly pushing you to end the connection, end the relationship. This is bad, this is wrong, something's not right, and you can't trust that voice, because that voice is going to say the exact same thing no matter who you're with, even if it's
That's
the
the
perfect
problem. It
person.
always finds something.
Right, right. And so then you have to recognize, okay, this voice is not actually giving advice. It's just a broken record. It's going to say the exact same thing no matter what the situation is. So why trust it? Why believe it when it's going to tell you, no matter how great the person is, no matter how great the connection is, eventually that tape is going to come up and start blaring at you. And it's just because that's all it can do. That's its job. Its job is to say the same thing over and over and over again to get you to believe it, to protect you from the relationship that you just might, you know, fall into and have a fabulous time in. God
God
forbid.
forbid. um, okay, there's another thread that gets tangled up with it, is a sort of passivity that I've always had about relationships, or with other people. So I rarely take initiative. Um, and so it's a weird place. It's not weird. It's a place to be in where they like me, they choose me, they want me. And then my choice is, do I want them back? And that's a very different place to be from I choose you, right? Because then there's guilt associated. Well, if I don't want them back, then, and that's been very, very strong all the time. Um,
Yeah.
so that's where there's that
Again,
thing of
that's
like, it's not the right person. It's not, but am I allowed to it not being the right person? And that gets tangled up with the whole thing that you were describing.
right. Right. And I think that's another voice narrative that just needs to be set aside and not believed, because it's also doing that thing of saying the same thing no matter who you're with, no matter what's happening. It's just it's not an advisor with any life in it. An advisor that is alive can look at a situation and evaluate and give different advice based on different realities on the ground. This thread, this voice, this narrative
Hmm.
doesn't do that. It's a hammer in search of a nail. It's always going to do the same thing. It's always going to say,
Right.
no, this is terrible. No, this is terrible. No, this is terrible.
Whether they're the right person or not, or good or not, or I like that, it's still gonna.
Right, right. And so it's helpful to identify those tapes in our head, those narratives that come up very consistently. And when they do, then you can recognize that it's going to say the same thing no matter what. It's not actually the voice of reason. It's not the voice of discernment. It's the voice of fear. It's the voice of get the F out of here at all costs.
Okay.
And here's the reason why, and so uh, the trick is to be present with that voice as it's yelling at you to get out, while not believing it. Be present with it without getting caught up in it.
It was pretty loud last time.
Yeah. And it's going to get louder and louder until it hooks you in, or something in you it really lets go of that hook, where that voice just can't grab you anymore because you've let go of what is, what can believe in it. If some part of you believes its story, then all it has to
Mhm.
do is yell it loud enough until you can't fight it off anymore, and then you fall into believing it again. But if you do some of the work beforehand, like while you're between relationships,
Ah, okay.
perfect timing, right? To really delve into that question. And this is the other key component. Part of the reason why you're believing these narratives is because you're like deep in your own psyche, there is a blockage to your own love for yourself.
Right. That I know.
Right.
I'm friends with that one,
Right.
or frenemies.
Frenemies, right. And so, that's what makes all these other narratives believable. The
Hmm.
ones that say that you're terrible and the relationship is a bad idea, and all these thoughts in your own head, and it makes their love for you unbelievable. Who are
Right.
these yahoos who think that I'm lovable? Like, what's wrong with them?
Right.
You know? And so that's the key element, is that uh, there is a wellspring of love within your soul, within your body mind, that is what you are. That is the actual true essence of all of creation, is that we are love, made out of love, created for love, by love. Like, it's just all love. And yet here's this experience of being completely cut off from love, and being lovable is hardly a credible idea. Like, what? So that's the experience. But the reality is that you are love, and love is always available to you. It's just that hasn't been your experience. And so, we can sort of delve back into a time in your life when there might have been, either with a parent or a family member, some sort of trauma or some sort of incident that made you feel like you're unlovable, or just over the course of time, not receiving love from family in a certain way. It could also, like I said, this stuff comes from past lives. It could be just a very deep past life thing that would need to be worked out, on that level. But that, I think, is the key. And this is generally true for people, but even people who do have like some small place in their heart where they do love themselves and they do accept that other people love them, they still have these same kinds of issues in relationship. It's not that that is so unique, or that is the limiting factor, and you'll never find love if you don't fix this one thing. Everybody has difficulty in relationship. Everybody has difficulty making it work, even when they don't have that sort of feeling cut off from love in such a deep
Hmm.
way. um, but for you in particular, because of what you've described here, that's what it looks like to me. All roads lead to that one place in your heart that just cannot conceive of yourself as a loved, lovable, and loving being, all at once in the same person, right? And so, uh, all these relationships are pushing up against that, because they're all coming to you and saying, "No, I love you. You're amazing. Like, go ahead and flail your arms all around, and do whatever you need to do. But at the end of all that, I'll be here loving you. And so then, when you're ready, let's just, have fun doing that." Um, that will have purchase when you already know that you are lovable, and you already know that you're loved. And so then somebody else coming to you with love won't feel so threatening and so wrong.
Hmm.
It's so odd. Like, why, what is it with this person? Um, and so then the question is, how do we bring that sense of love
Hmm.
into that core place? And I imagine you've already done all kinds of affirmations and so forth,
I do
on this.
my well, gratitudes. It's not the same as affirmations. Have I done affirmations? Some. It's I do. Not as much. Not really.
Not as much. Okay. So
No,
that's a good place
actually,
to start.
don't think I've done any.
Okay. So, obviously, we can do some vortex work around that. I think that will bear some fruit. But even aside from that, um, just taking, like, in your mind's eye, imagine yourself, think of yourself, and everything is exactly the same, except that what you can see love emanating out from your heart, through your body, out into your energy field, and into the world around you. Right? Just go ahead and try that right now. Close your eyes. And just start with an image of yourself as you normally think of yourself. And then imagine that exact same person looking the exact same way, but with this sense of love deep in your heart, just kind of emanating outward.
It, so it's interesting. Before when you were talking, I did feel the heart chakra like opening up some earlier. Um, when I do this exercise, though, it needs an intermediate step. It's not ready
Okay.
to. It needs it's like,
Yeah. So
like
what's it doing? I mean, that's part of the exercise is seeing what does that bump up against. It's not that instantly, oh, now you have this image and now that's who you are, and we just solved the whole problem. It's more like, okay, so that's sort of what we're shooting for, is a self-image that
Mhm.
sees yourself as having that love just there, not needing it from anybody else. It's just inwardly sourced. And so when we imagine that, what does that bump up against? So you said it kind of does this little thing. So what does that
it's
little thing?
it's it, it's there, but there's fear. It can't grow.
Okay, and what's the fear?
Um, uh, worthiness.
That you're not worthy of love.
Yeah,
Fear that you're not worthy of love. Okay.
and not about receiving it from others. About the inside.
Hmm.
This is not about other people. This is the one
Right.
that starts inside. Yeah.
Okay. And so what if I told you that love doesn't care if you're worthy or not?
Um,
That
it's funny. This is just an aside. I wanted to ask you, about vortex, where I made some decisions and then life changed a little bit, and I was like, am I being punished for those decisions? And I was like, no, you're not. The universe is helping you. It just made your life easier. Yes, you lost work, but that's because it made your life better, and it did it for love, not because it's punishing you for everything you do.
right, right. Hmm.
It's that kind of worthiness.
Yeah. And so can you conceive of a love that doesn't care about the question of worthiness? Like that, it doesn't even enter the equation for what true divine love is. You can feel unworthy and be loved anyway, right? And sometimes, when our ability to feel love is so, or inability to feel love is so wrapped up in an issue like that, feeling love will trigger that feeling of unworthiness. We'll feel so unworthy of love as we're receiving it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the trick here is to keep feeling it anyway.
The little ball of light, it just kind of disintegrated, but
Mm-hmm,
not in a bad way. It's because it doesn't have the pressure on it anymore. When you just let go of that pushing,
mm-hmm,
then it can just be there
right,
without having to fight its way out.
right. Yeah. So now when you close your eyes and you imagine yourself as you've always imagined yourself, and now with the light of love emerging in your heart, emanating out in all directions, how does that feel this time around?
It's it's fainter, but more spread, just kind of everywhere. Like I said, instead of a ball of something,
When you say it, do you mean the love or the anxiety or
No, the light.
the light?
The light. It's more like blood going through the body
Hmm.
than a ball of light in the
Gotcha.
center.
Hmm. But you can see that. You can see the love within your image of yourself. And you can see it moving from your heart into other areas of your body.
I think so. It's very faint.
Right. That's that's the start. You go from being completely, locked down in a shell to one little crack opening up, and a little bit of light can come out through there, and that is really a quantum jump, from where you were before, from zero sense of love coming, through you, to even just a tiny fraction of a bit of love coming through you, is a huge shift. It's much easier to go from a little bit of love to a lot of love than it is from no love to a little bit of love. So,
It's more permeable this way.
mhm, right. And so this is should serve as a point of reference for you. Now that you've had this moment of seeing love as it emerges in your body and in your consciousness, that's something that you can go back to and just sit with, and bring it into yourself. Like we did this as an exercise of you looking out at an image of yourself. But the next step, at a certain point when you're ready, would be to bring that image of yourself into your body.
I think I was kind of doing that already, which is probably
Okay.
why it was harder. Yeah, I tried looking at myself and I just kept coming back in.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you did that adaptation. Um, so now that is here, and let's take a moment just to kind of breathe life into that light that you are now able to perceive very faintly. So do breathing meditation. So as you breathe in, breathing air and light and life into that little ball of light in your chest. And then as you breathe out, just let out all the tension and all of the blockage and all of the anxiety and everything that gets in the way. Breathe light into the life. Breathe life into the light. And just let all the tension drain out as you breathe out.
There it is. I've always had a lot of anxiety in this chakra. Like that's where it all comes to. Um, and when that released, I think that's what it was. And so now it's still open, but without all that crackling.
Mm-hmm. Good. Awesome.
And I like it that it's more spread out because when it's all concentrated here, it hurts.
Right.
And so it's better when it's very mild.
Right.
It's not overwhelming.
Right. And that actually points to something that I find quite fascinating, which is that all of our pain is basically just suppressed love. And once you stop suppressing it, it's kind of painful on its way to normalcy, to when we're going back to sort of a natural state, because of all that time that it had spent being suppressed. But that's all it is. It's just love compacted deep in the heart. And this is a process of letting that love flow just really naturally, and therefore with less pain in the beginning. And so that makes sense, that association between love and pain, is something that you're experiencing viscerally in the body right now. So it makes sense that that association is there, wherever that originally came from. But now we're in a process of sort of opening that up and allowing love to emerge, uh, however, however little in this particular moment, but we're getting that process started.
Getting,
And
getting bigger.
it's getting bigger. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
And
safe.
so that, like I said, that's now your point of reference. That's something you can always go back to. And the more that you practice just being with it and breathing into it, the more it's going to emerge in your body. It's also going to bump up against other things that are not so sure about, this whole love thing. That sounds very threatening.
Yeah.
Right. So that'll happen, and just keep breathing into it, and keep allowing as much as you can that love to emerge into every cell in your body, and bump up against every bit of self-worth, self-esteem, all these kinds of issues that say, no, I'm not worthy, I can't have it, love is not for me. Whatever the story is, it's going to keep bumping up against that. But the more that you do this, the more that your center will know that that's not true, that all
It,
these
it,
stories
yeah, it's
are
like
just
water.
stories.
So the thing about it being like blood, it's like water, so that it's going to clear out all those rocks and stuff in the way. It has to keep flowing through everything to clean out all the tubes, inside. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Yep, yep,
Yeah.
totally.
It's a different
Yeah.
image.
So
It's not something that needs to grow. It just needs to keep spreading and
yeah, and,
cleaning
and I
out.
have to say, just interacting with you right now already feels different. Like I can feel there's sort of
My
this,
hands are open. They start, and now they're like,
yeah, and there's just kind of a soft warmth kind of emanating out of your what I can see of your your head and shoulders and whatnot. Yeah,
it's all open.
but yeah, and in your words, it's like uh, your voice just held this um, uh, what do you call it, like almost the thirst. It's like somebody who'd been in a desert their entire life, and their voice just kind of croaks with a lack of hydration. And it's like your voice had that with the lack of love. And even just in these last few minutes, there's been a shift in your voice, and there's less of that sort of decrepit, desiccated, dried out kind of, sound to it. Now there's a little bit of warmth and love and light that's already, expressing in your voice. How does that feel to you?
Oh, it's great. And it doesn't, like the little voice, like, well, what if I never find somebody to blah, blah. But it isn't. It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter who else does what.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah. And so as you develop, your relationship with this love that's emerging in your heart, and as that becomes more and more your center, when somebody shows up who sees you and values you and loves you, you'll still freak out. But part of you will there'll be something that can resonate with that love, that says, yes, this makes sense, this does not turn my world all upside down. The love that they're sending me resonates with the love that I already feel inside myself.
Mm.
And so then there will be a part of you that will be even better able to combat those tapes and narratives that will inevitably come up. We haven't cleared all of that history and conditioning out of your system, but we've given your system a completely new reference point to operate from.
Will it
And
stay? Can I come back
it
to
will,
it?
if you nurture it, and the point of reference is there. Like I didn't do any magic at all. All I did was
Yeah.
have you imagine yourself with that love in your heart, and then all of a sudden it was there. You were able to do it. I didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do feel disconnected from it, and that's entirely possible, this is, we're just sort of getting started on it, fanning the flames of a little ember there.
Oh.
So if that does, kind of if you're feeling distant from it, then just do the same thing. Just imagine
Mhm.
yourself with that light in your heart, and then breathe into it. And the more you do that, the more normal it will become.
Um, it before I was thinking it's like Reiki, where you give Reiki, you imagine them and then that light, and then like you're doing it for other people. And I hadn't ever tried it on myself. It's not what I was doing now, but it is the same kind of process.
Yeah, yeah,
I never even thought of doing it on myself.
yeah. It's there's this article written by a woman who she was remarking on how like she got into her shower and there's all these like almost empty bottles of shampoo.
Mhm.
And she started like really judging herself for not finishing any of the
Mm.
shampoo bottles and leaving a mess, and why can't she get her shit together, and why she always leave things that and so there's all these narratives running through her head. And then she just something sort of stopped her in the middle of all that, and she thought, if I stepped into my boyfriend's shower and it had all these almost empty bottles of shampoo, I would just think that was really cute and endearing. I'm like, oh my god, like my man, he's all in his own head, and this is what happened. It's so cute and adorable. You know what I mean? Like she wouldn't have judged it harshly, and so she just decided in that moment to apply that kind of love and tenderness to
Mhm.
herself that she would
Right.
normally have reserved for a loved one, but never for herself. And that just kind of changed everything for her. She could start to recognize that stream of consciousness that is judgmental and harsh and mean has no more place being directed at herself than it does at
See,
anybody
yeah,
else.
it's true, and I've used that. I was like, would I ever think that about anybody else? And I know the answer, but it doesn't get in here. It's
Right,
up here. It
right.
never actually gets there.
Yeah, it's because you needed that little ember of light there to resonate and say, yeah, I shouldn't be saying this shit to me either.
Right, that thing fighting back. It always fought back, but it fought back with noise against noise,
Right.
um, and that's different. It's very empty
So
fight. Yeah.
we have just a few minutes left.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts or questions or anything before we close up today?
The shoulders opening up as well. It
Look at
likes this
that.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been doing a lot of stuff, but yeah, it definitely is wanting a lot more openness here. This one is always curled forward, so it's working its way back.
Very good.
Uh, oof. I can see that a booster shot would be needed at some point.
Sure. Yeah, we can totally do that. But it's getting that frame of reference, just that first, reference point for feeling love in your body in a way
Right.
that you haven't before. It's huge. That
I was just, yeah, I was thinking, when I've done therapy, talk therapy before, even EMDR, there was like, go to your safe place, you safe, and I didn't have one. I never
mm,
had one. I couldn't find one. It didn't make sense to me. And this is building that in, but in a way that actually is there instead
right.
of grabbing it, whatever, safe place.
Yeah, I mean, love is very safe, and fear is our emotional response to feeling unsafe. And we feel that because we've been cut off from love. Our experience is disconnected from love. And so then yeah, the world becomes a terrifying place. If you can't see the love within it, then it's just everything's out to kill you.
Mhm.
But when you experience yourself as love, then you can see that love is within everything. And then that sense of fear and lack of safety starts to drop away, because
Mm.
that love is inherently safe, and will spread out into all these other areas that might still feel unsafe. But once it has love inside of it, even basic survival stuff doesn't feel as scary, because whatever your experience is, it'll be an experience steeped in love, and so then there's no need to fear it.
I like that. I'll take it.
Lovely. On that note, why don't we close up? So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you got a lot out of it, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay, thank you.